I am a graffiti artist, and my life is surrounded by old walls, abandoned train cars, and dark alleys. Graffiti art is not only a hobby, but also a way for me to express myself, to fight against the monotony of everyday life. My friend Lucas is also a graffiti enthusiast, but he often follows me just to enjoy the feeling of adventure and comfort. One evening, while we were sitting in a familiar coffee shop, I told Lucas about a new place I found on Google Maps. It was an old train line located in the middle of a remote forest. I described the rusty train cars, abandoned walls, and quiet space, perfect for creating great art without being discovered. Lucas immediately agreed enthusiastically. We prepared our tools, cans of paint, masks, flashlights, and some snacks. We decided to go around 10 p.m. when there was no one around and darkness was everywhere, creating the perfect atmosphere for thrill seekers like us. When we arrived at the location, a creepy feeling spread throughout my body. The forest surrounding the railway line created a silent and eerie atmosphere. The faint moonlight filtered through the trees, creating eerie shadows on the ground. We moved along the railway line, looking for old train cars that I had seen on the map. Lucas whispered a few jokes to ease the tension, but I could sense the excitement in his voice. Finally, we found a rusty train car, standing still in the darkness. I started my work, spraying the first strokes on the cold iron wall. Lucas sat nearby, admiring my work. It took us about an hour to complete a large graffiti painting, a colorful and detailed piece. When I looked back at my work, I felt a sense of pride and happiness. As we were about to start the next painting, I heard a strange noise from behind us. At first, I thought it was just the wind or an animal in the forest, but when a paint can was thrown towards us, I knew someone was watching. Lucas heard the noise too and turned to look at me, his eyes wide with fear. We stood in silence for a few seconds, listening to the sounds around us. Soft footsteps and panting echoed from the darkness. "I think we should get out of here," Lucas whispered, his voice trembling. I nodded in agreement. We quickly gathered our things and started moving in the direction we had come. But as we turned around, a dark figure suddenly appeared in front of us. I couldn't see the man's face, but his eyes were bright in the darkness, full of hatred and madness. "Run!" I yelled, and we started running for our lives toward the woods. Footsteps were right behind us, and I heard gunshots. Lucas almost fell when a bullet grazed his leg. We kept running, not daring to look back. We ran through bushes and jumped over rotten tree stumps, trying to escape our pursuer. I felt panic and exhaustion rising, but I knew we couldn't stop. We had to get out of here no matter what. Finally, we reached a well-lit area, a clearing near a main road. We stopped to catch our breath, our hearts pounding in our chests. I looked around, but there was no sign of our pursuer. "We're out," Lucas breathed, sweat pouring down his face. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Something was wrong. I didn't know who that person was or why he attacked us. But one thing was for sure, we had escaped an extremely dangerous situation. A few weeks later, I decided to go back to the place during the day to check. I knew it was a risky decision, but I couldn't let fear take over my mind. I had to know what really happened that night. When I got there, I saw that the places I had tagged were covered in red paint. It seemed like someone had deliberately erased my work. I entered an abandoned train car, and a strong smell of bleach hit my nose. Inside the car, I saw a chair and ropes lying everywhere. The signs of torture were obvious to me. I felt a chill down my spine and decided to leave the place immediately. I didn't want to know more about what happened there. Since then, I have never returned to that place again. The pursuers and the mysteries behind that incident remain unanswered questions. One summer afternoon, I decided to hop on the train to experience the old feeling again. Memories of my youth, when my friends and I used to climb on freight trains, crossing long railway lines, came back to my mind. I chose a familiar route with a long tunnel, where I often passed through when I was young. As the train was about to enter the tunnel, I saw a strange light from the end of the tunnel. At first, I didn't pay much attention, thinking it was just the headlights from a cart or a group of people playing some game. I continued to hold on to the train, enjoying the thrill and the shaking of the train. The train gradually entered the tunnel, the light gradually dimmed, and darkness enveloped it. I felt the air become cold, and the rustling sounds of the train echoed in the narrow space. Suddenly, from the darkness, a cold hand grabbed my leg. I panicked and tried to pull my legs away, but the hand gripped me tighter. The cold and pressure from that hand made me feel like I was being pulled into a bottomless pit. I struggled with all my might, trying to escape the terrible grip. While I was struggling, the train began to leave the tunnel. Light from outside gradually appeared, and I saw that I had a chance to jump down. I quickly jumped off the train, rolled on the ground, and looked back. In the dim light of the tunnel, I saw two dark figures standing there, staring at me. A savage scream rang out from the tunnel, making me shiver and feel my hair stand on end. That scream did not sound like a human voice, but like a creature from the underworld screaming. I decided never to jump off the train again, and from then on, every time I passed that area, I always felt an inexplicable haunting. Even though I escaped that terrifying situation, I could never forget the feeling of that cold hand and the dark shadows in the tunnel. I told this story to a few friends, but no one believed that there could be anything mysterious in that tunnel. One day I decided to go back to that area during the day just to check if there was anything special. When I entered the tunnel, the air was still cold and dark, even though it was sunny outside. I found strange marks on the tunnel wall, like long handprints. I did not dare to stay long because the feeling of fear came back. From then on, I stayed away from that area and tried not to think about what had happened. But sometimes in my dreams, I found myself being pulled into the dark tunnel and felt that cold hand grabbing me. I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding, and told myself that it was just a dream. But the truth was that I knew exactly what I had experienced. I work as an MTA employee at a subway station in Brooklyn. My job usually starts in the evening and lasts until dawn. The work is not too complicated, mainly checking and maintaining equipment, making sure everything is running smoothly. Although there are sometimes strange noises or unusual phenomena, I always assume that it is just the old system or rats running around. One night while I was working, I heard a strange noise coming from the tunnel. At first I thought it was just a rat or a piece of concrete falling, but then I heard a child's cry for help. The sound echoed in the dark space, making it impossible for me to ignore. I decided to go into the tunnel to check. Darkness covered everything. Only the light from my flashlight illuminated. The cries for help continued, becoming clearer and seeming to be getting closer. I felt my heart beat faster, both anxious and curious. In the darkness, I saw the silhouettes of a child and an adult. The child seemed to be trying to escape from the adult, but was being held tightly. I moved closer, trying to determine the situation and find a way to help the child. But as I approached, the adult turned around, his eyes glowing in the darkness. I panicked and called the police immediately. When they arrived, we went into the basement together to check, but everything seemed to have disappeared. We only found a child's shoe lying on the basement floor. No one knew what had happened, and there was no trace of the child or the adult. The police investigated, but to no avail. No one believed that anything terrible had happened, but I was sure that I had seen and heard clearly what had happened that night. I was haunted and could not forget the man's eyes glowing in the darkness. From then on, whenever I worked the night shift, I would feel a chill down my spine when I passed that area. Every little noise would startle me and remind me of what had happened. I started carrying something to protect myself, even though I knew it would be useless if I encountered that man again. One night, when I heard strange noises coming from the tunnel again, I decided not to go and check. I didn't want to face that horror again. I just stood at the tunnel entrance, looking into the darkness and telling myself it was just a rat or a piece of concrete falling down. But deep down, I knew something was wrong, and the haunting memory of that night would always haunt me.